Right then, colleagues, shall we make a start? Welcome to the people at the back there. Nice to see you come along to listen to the Cabinet. We've got a new system today, so we are trying this out and we'll see how we get through it. Anyway, item 1 is the nearly final agenda. So let's proceed to that. Oh, hang on, wrong one. Right. Here we go. Right, page 1, which is the front. Let's just see where we are. Yeah, page 1. No, I'm not on it. Yes.
Go down to the minutes. Next one down.
Yeah. Hang on a second. Here we go. Right. It says minutes of the Cabinet of Torfaen County Borough Council. Item 4. Agenda item 4. So, right. Page 1. Sorry, page 5. Page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Page 10. Page 11. Somebody move the true reckon? All agreed? Joe, thanks so much.
Excuse me, Leader. I wonder if we might do the declarations of interest beforehand, before we start the items proper.
Yes. Do you want to go through them?
Yes, I've had some discussions with members, so I know there are a couple to be declared. Item 6, that's the 21st century schools. Councillor Morby has a personal interest as the governor of Llantarnam Primary School. That's correct. Yeah, thank you. You can stay for that item. Councillor Gwenara Clark, you have a prejudicial interest because your granddaughter works at Ysgol Panteg. You will have to leave for that item and not take part. And also the Deputy Leader on item 10, he's a council-appointed trustee of Torfaen Leisure Trust. But here, because the Cabinet is asked to give a guarantee, that interest, which is normally personal, becomes prejudicial. So again, Deputy Leader, you will leave and not take part in that item. If there are any other interests that occur to members as we go through, then please ask for advice or declare as appropriate. Thank you.
Thanks for that. On to agenda item 5 now, in this action sheet. Any comments to the Executive? Any members will ask you questions on that?
Sorry, Leader, there's only one action, and that's Viable Places, which is on the agenda.
Right, thanks for that. Now then, on to item 6, which is 21st century schools, and this is John Tushingham. Over to you, John.
Thank you, Leader. Some brighter news for you from me today, because this is about new schools rather than strictly just closing schools. Back in April of last year, you recall, we submitted an outline business case to Welsh Government that would see new schools on the Blenheim Road site, or the Blenheim Road Primary School, sorry, on the current Llantarnam secondary site. No, I'll get this right. The Blenheim Road School on the Blenheim site, the Llantarnam Community Primary School on the current site of the secondary school, and Ysgol Panteg. Welsh Government have indicated that we can move to the next phase of the business case for those. There is something that they've done around the numbers. We originally wanted 420-place schools for each of those, and whilst they're happy for that for Ysgol Panteg, they do think that we should proceed on the basis of 315-place schools for the other two. In order to progress this, we have to go through statutory consultation processes. It's necessary for Ysgol Panteg and it's necessary for Llantarnam. It isn't necessary for Blenheim Road, but we think that although it's not required by statute to have a consultation on Blenheim Road, we should still have a consultation to make sure that stakeholders have a chance to see what it is that we're planning to do and to comment on that. The other dimension to this is that we were originally aiming to get the new schools built for September 2015. The delay in getting approval of the outline business case, they had it for the best part of 9 months, means that we would not be able to achieve September 2015. So we're now aiming for September 2016, which should allow us plenty of time to get those schools up and running. It's possible that we may actually be able to deliver one or more sooner than that date, but clearly in-year movement of children to new premises is not ideal, and it's certainly not a good idea if it's on a different site. I think Blenheim Road is the exception there, where it would be on the same site, and it may be feasible for them to start decanting into the new build if we were able to complete that sooner. We will, in parallel with the consultation, subject to your approval this morning, be finishing the final business case for these 3 new builds. Part of that will be how we deal with the issue of advancing 3 15-place schools rather than 420 for 2 of them. We need to ensure, as far as possible, that we've got some flexibility in the design of those buildings, such that we can add to them at a later date if the pupil numbers that we anticipate will be coming through, and that is based on what's in the local development plan, do come through, and we end up with a situation where we're stretched. So that will be built into the work as we progress, and it will be something that we'll be stipulating with our colleagues in neighbourhood services with the contractor to say, let's have a design that allows us potentially to add on at a later date and make sure we're ready for that. The full business case will set out in some detail the preferred commercial route, the procurement route that we intend to take, and that's something obviously that will come back to you for approval before we proceed anywhere. One of the issues there is about being sure that we're ready to go at the earliest opportunity, because the sooner we can get on the ground the better, but equally there is a public consultation to go through, so we can't do anything that would jeopardise that or be seen to be prejudicial. The financial split for the new schools continues on the basis of 50% contribution from the Council, 50% contribution from Welsh Government. In this particular case, we're looking at a ceiling price in terms of the Council's contribution of 10,800,000. It probably will be less than that, because that was based originally on 3 420-place schools. The economies of coming down to 315 aren't necessarily significant, but you know, I would anticipate that we will come in under that original price. Paragraph 5.8 provides a timeline, an indicative timeline for both the consultation process that we are asking for permission to start, and also for the development of the full business case, which we're hoping to get back to you around May. So we've got a slightly more relaxed time frame now. If we were aiming for 2015 still, well, it just wouldn't be possible. So if I turn to the recommendations, which are eventually, I knew I'd break this. Where are we?
John, can I ask for comments first before?
Yes, sir.
Comments, Brian?
Thank you, Leader. I repeat the interest. I've declared a personal interest, as I am a member of the Llantarnam Community Primary School governing body. It's nice to be talking about building new schools rather than closing schools, and this is good news, although it's the timescale is a bit disappointing, because obviously we would have hoped to have the new schools built for September 2015, but it really isn't our fault that there's been a bit of a delay. There are implications in respect of one particular school because of that delay, and that is Yscol Panteg. We had hoped to have the new school, as I say, by September 2015, because the current arrangements for that school, temporarily located at the former Griffithstown Infant School, are inadequate to meet the increased numbers of pupils. As it happens, that increase for September 2014 would have required some measure to be taken this year anyway, but that measure will have to then last for 2 years. So we do need to come back to Cabinet with proposals in respect of making those temporary arrangements to enable Yscol Panteg to receive all the pupils who have applied to go there from this September, and that's to be subject of a report to an extraordinary Cabinet this time next week. So just sort of giving notice of that. And whilst I'm on the subject, can I just mention that that extraordinary Cabinet will also receive a report in respect of the arrangements being made for the transfer of pupils from Pontymoyle Primary School Special Needs Resource Base to Nantcelyn Primary School with effect from September this year. There's a couple of issues relating to that which Cabinet needs to have a report on and deal with. Otherwise, I'm very happy that we've got some progress. Thank you.
John, thanks, Brian. I think right. Anybody got any comments to make? No? All agree the report? They're on page 17, 11.1. Show. Thanks very much. Thank you. Didn't I give apologies? Where's,
She's coming back. She
right.
got an interest.
Right. We're on now to item 7. This is a new system, which I'm sure all members are finding out. Thanks, Gwenina. Item 7 now, property improvement loans are on the agenda. It's called private sector housing loans. This is Sue.
Okay, thank you, Leader. Thank you, members. What we're looking for here is approval for the property improvement loan. You agreed in principle last April for us to go away and look at the methodology for developing this loan, and it essentially has 2 functions set out there at 2.1, looking at private sector housing renewal and linking to the disabled facilities grant. And so we're looking for Cabinet approval for those, and I'll take you through some of the backgrounds and the recommendations, but I'm looking for approval to introduce this from April. Just a reminder there in 4.1, 75% of the houses in Torfaen are in the private sector, either leased properties or purchased properties. I think sometimes we forget that. We think that it is primarily social housing, particularly when you look at areas like Cwmbran, which was an urban development corporation. We think that that's where the majority of people live, but as you can see there, it's 25% of people live in social housing accommodation. And at the moment, the only area we have for private sector residents for housing repair is under our neighbourhood renewal system that you'll be aware of. And obviously, we declare those and they last for 10 years and they're in relatively small parts of the borough. So very often, there are other parts of the system where a loan product would be useful, but under the current rules, we're not able to stretch that resource further. So, with the limitations on government funds now, it's becoming increasingly difficult for those families outside those areas, or even within those areas, if they need something that is outside the renewal area grant conditions, it's difficult for us to achieve that. If I go to 4.3, you can see there the level of funding. We get about 640,000, and that's been notionally indicated to us for the next 3 years. So there's no growth there, so we know to try and stretch that grant further. If we have a loan product, by ring fencing what we're suggesting here, 100,000 out of that grant, we'll be able to recycle that grant and extend that money much further. And then if you look at 4.5, I'm referring there to the Disabled Facilities Grant. At the moment, there is a mandatory limit, an upper limit of £36,000 on any Disabled Facilities Grant. And I've presented to you previously papers on DFGs where very often, because of the old, the condition of the houses, some of those works to make them fit for somebody with a disability are quite complex. And now and again, not very often, but now and again, the costs of those adaptations go above that £36,000 limit. So it puts people in a very difficult situation at the moment. They want the adaptation. They've been assessed as needing the adaptation, but it's above the cost of the mandatory cap. And having a loan product there for DFGs would enable us to increase that, so that if the cost of those adaptations goes beyond that mandatory cap, we can still go ahead with that adaptation. So those are the main elements there. Just to highlight under 4.7, what we're seeing now is, because there's been an awful lot of investment in the social housing sector with RSLs, and obviously Bronavon being our major partner in the area, with the Welsh Health Quality Standards and capital being invested in that area, there's now becoming quite a discrepancy between people who live in social housing and are having the benefits of the WHQS, and people who can't afford to maintain their own house if they rent privately or if they mortgage or own it outright. So we're starting to see quite a difference in the functional fabric, if you like, of those buildings across the borough, and many members will see that in their own wards. As I've mentioned there at 4.8, you previously agreed in principle that a loan product would be developed, and this is us bringing this paper and the detail for you. And then how we're going to run it, under 5 there, we're going to top slice, if you like, 100,000 from that grant. And that grant is limited to the neighbourhood renewal areas, but by producing a loan product, when that loan is recycled, there won't be any restrictions on where that grant can then be used. So we'll be able to extend beyond the neighbourhood renewal areas for those grants. Again, the DFGs, I've advised you on the remit there. If I take you to 5.4, how we're going to operate the grant, we're not going to commission that from a third party. We're going to administer that internally in the council, and there, in relevant cases, we can put an agency charge against the loan to cover some of those costs. But it's quite a cost-effective way of running that product in-house. The other thing to highlight under 5.5 is Welsh Government have been talking about developing a private sector loan product for the last few years. We were expecting to have one launched last year, but it didn't happen. There are plans for it to be launched this year, but this will put us in a good position to start operating on a loan basis rather than in a grant culture, get us ready for, if that Welsh Government loan is developed, we'll be in a strong position to just adapt whatever we have to whatever new requirement. And the other thing to think about is, often some of the Welsh Government plans do slip. So even though they've planned to launch it last year, they plan to launch it this summer, there may be other things outside their control that happen. They may not get that loan product, the national one, until later on in the year. So by implementing this loan product now, we'll be ahead of the game and able to start developing that. I've advised you that we were previously already given approval to start looking at this. The other thing to highlight under 7.2, this will be managed by what's called a charge against the property. So, that gives us, if you like, the confirmation that the loan will be paid back, because it will actually be badged against somebody's property. I think those are the main things I wanted to highlight. Just the one other thing outstanding, the 7.4, the £50,000 for DFG, instead of top slicing that out of our DFG capital, I've applied for a separate grant under the Intermediate Care Fund. That's a later paper for Cabinet on today's agenda. So if that is approved, we already will have secured that £50,000 for the DFG loan through an alternative route. So we'll be able to keep the DFG capital pot as it currently is. So those are the main elements to highlight to you this morning. I've described how it's going to be monitored, and I've described some of the potential risks, but I'm looking for Cabinet approval to start that property improvement loan, to introduce it from April, and it will cover those two functions, help support people where the DFG is above 36,000, and help us stretch the neighbourhood renewal capital in a much more cost-effective way and enable more people to take advantage of that, particularly outside the neighbourhood renewal area. So I'm looking for Cabinet approval on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. I know that one or two members have mentioned to me that they found the report a little bit confusing. Lou?
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Sue, for the report. I certainly welcome the report. And given that we are in area renewals areas and it's a 10-year programme, increasingly we are seeing more and more people with houses that certainly need to have works done on them, not being able to access any funding. So I'm pleased that this has come here today, and I hope that Cabinet will support it, because this is another way that we can perhaps bring some properties back into useful accommodation for people, because at the moment there are more and more houses out there that are deteriorating minute by minute because the people, the owners, haven't got any funding to do it. So this will be an opportunity for them to access some funding, and all the risk, I feel, have been protected here. So I hope the Cabinet will approve this morning. Thank you.
Good. Leo?
Yes, I certainly agree with Gwynair. You know, it is good news, but as I say, it is a bit confusing. For a long time now, there don't seem to be any domestic grants as there used to be. You know, lots and lots of people have over the years asked me about grants, and we've said that we've seen these neighbourhood renewal areas and so on and so on. There's lots and lots of people who bought their properties, ex-council properties, under the right to buy. You know, in those days, if you were working, you were more or less forced to buy your own house. The rents were being pushed up by a Thatcher government. And consequently, lots of those people now are in their 70s and 80s and can't afford to modernise their properties or whatever. So while I welcome this, to me it is a bit confusing for the ordinary person out there. So I hope there's going to be, you know, some kind of simplified method of making people aware of what's available to them, and as much help as possible. Thanks very much.
All right, thanks. Anybody else? Dave?
Yeah, payback. Over what period are we going to be imposing market conditions, or are we going to be a little bit more flexible, a little bit more supportive, helpful? What's going on there?
Okay, shall I just answer the first question that Councillor Jones emphasised? Advertising, obviously we're waiting for Cabinet approval. Once we get Cabinet approval, we will work on the detail about how are we going to manage this, how will we organise it. The other thing we're trying to do, picking up your point, is get as much intelligence as we can from what the Welsh Government scheme is likely to be, to make sure that ours fits alongside the Welsh Government scheme. So in the next few weeks we'll be tying down, if you like, those very details. What is the payback period? And they could be different for different people. It will depend on their ability to pay. So we want to be as flexible as possible. We will certainly be, it'll be a better option, if you like, than somebody trying to go to a bank. So we'll make sure that it is as favourable as it can be, but we're still working through some of those details, and we want to be in line with what other local authorities are doing. Today is to get the approval for the product, and then we'll work on those details.
Than the banks, because at the moment people may be having difficulty accessing the bank route anyway, so this is something that is more accessible in terms of a product. But I'm pleased to hear what you said in direct answer to the question, because it seems to me that the project is a good one, it's sound, and it is likely potentially to help a lot of people. But unless we get that particular detail right, then we're not doing them any favours if we're going to land them with more debt that they can accommodate. So I hope we can address that.
That's definitely the aim, and obviously part of our housing team, we have within there financial advisors, we use the corporate financial advisors, we use Citizens Advice Bureau. So there's a network of agencies, including the council, where there's that regular financial advice to individuals living in the county, and they would be offered the same sort of support.
Right, thanks for that, Sue. Brian?
Just a minor point. We've been asked to approve the amended housing renewal policy, which refers to the Disabled People's Service as being based in County Hall, which...
Did mention this.
Yeah.
I did notice it, but
Can I just say I did email Sue about that. So, Leader, can I just go back to the point that Councillor Jones made, and it is rather confusing for a lot of people, but just to reassure Councillor Jones and other members that we will make sure that everything possible will be done for people to understand the process. We'll have either some road shows or something that will encourage people to firstly apply, but certainly to for them to understand the system.
Thanks for that. Anybody else? If not, all agree with the report, sure. Thanks very much. Thank you, Sue. On now then to item 8, which is the amended application for funding under the Vibrant and Viable Places, and this is Christina Harry.
Okay, thank you, Leader, and good morning, members. The purpose of this report this morning is to seek approval to submit our revised bid to the Welsh Government by the 31st of March. And as the Chief Executive outlined earlier in this meeting, it's an outstanding action from the previous Cabinet report that I submitted last month, which was informing members of the outcome of our original submission, which was for 13.8 million, but we received a notional allocation of 8.2 million. So in seeking and rescoping the project, officers and Welsh Government officials have been very mindful of the original priorities in the bid, and they are detailed in 3.1 of the report, which I'll just remind members of what they are. Those priorities are around improving the viability of failing town centres, supporting community first areas, providing new housing, jobs created, investment levered in, and people supported back into work. So in looking at the revised scope, we've been very mindful that we are still able to demonstrate outcomes against those key performance indicators. So in terms of the revised bid, if I can just refer you to Appendix 3 of the report, which is very small, but I'll draw out the key themes and the key areas of the revised bid. Okay. And they are focusing on Pontypool Town Centre first. The key elements of the project are the refurbishment of Hypervalue for residential accommodation on upper floors and the commercial creative use on the ground floor. And that's with a VVP contribution of 1.5 million. Then it's the refurbishment of St James's Church for community and cultural use with a VVP contribution of 235,000. And you'll see that both of those projects require match funding in the first instance, from the Registered Social Landlords, and on the second element, match funding Heritage Lottery Fund. The third element then is an investment fund for bringing derelict vacant properties into commercial residential usage. So that's about condensing the town centre so that it's focused on retail, and then converting the outlying properties, bringing them back into up to an appropriate standard so that we're able to rent or sell them on. That's all funded through VVP with a cost of £1.5 million, and we're looking to the Development Trust to take on that role, and there's some work that we will need to do with the Development Trust to make them fit for purpose, essentially. Another element of the Pontypool Town Centre project is private rented sector loan scheme, loans to private owners to improve increase the amount of private rental sector accommodation available. The cost of that is 200,000, all funded through VVP, and we'd be looking for our colleagues in the Housing Department to administer that element of the project for us. So that brings the total project cost for Pontypool Town Centre to 5.2 million, with the VVP contribution of that being 3.5 million. Then the second element of the revised bid is around canal side, and that is around creating a canal side quarter in Cwmbran Town Centre. And the VVP contribution for this project is 4.7 million, with a total cost requirement of 5.7 million, with that match funding coming from the private sector. And that funding is to acquire land. So that is to release the land available to enable that development to take place. So that brings the revised scope project value to 8.2 million, with 3.5 million being for Pontypool Town Centre and 4.7 million for Canal Side. That brings the total project value with investment levered in to 50 million, so it's still a significant regeneration programme for the borough. And in terms of outputs, we are estimating 674 jobs created, 363 people would be supported back into work, and 246 homes would be created. So a significant investment and match funding leverage to that project. You'll recall in the initial bid, the 13.8 million bid, there were other elements of that project, and they were improvements to Pontypool New Inn Station. We are still looking to take that project forward, albeit using Welsh Government transport funding, so we're in dialogue with Welsh Government officials to take that project through. The canal restoration from 5 locks to Canal Side and improvements to the Pontymoyle Basin, again, that was originally included in the VVP bid, but we are now looking to seek European funding, Heritage Lottery funding and other Welsh Government funding to take that project forward. And walking and cycling routes, which we're looking to link the canal to our to the neighbouring communities. Again, that's no longer in the VVP revised bid, but we're looking to seek European funding and any other sources of funding, such as Sustrans, to take that project forward. So overall, our intention is still to deliver that initial scheme, albeit that the VVP allocation now is much less than what was originally anticipated, but we will be looking to draw on match funding to unleash those other elements of the project. Like I said earlier, the project is of a scale and a complexity that we've not experienced before. It does carry some significant risks with it, and some of those are detailed in the report, but I'll just outline and re-emphasise a few of them. With regards to Canal Side, the land acquisition is a key risk for us because the VVP funding needs to be committed and spent within 3 years. And, land acquisition does take time to unleash, so that is a key risk for us. The need to obtain a major private sector partner through some form of special purpose vehicle, through some form of partnership, is a risk for us because that will take time to procure. The release and timing of other LDP housing allocations, that's something that we need to consider as well, although the Canal Side, you'll recall, members, is within our local development plan. The project relies on a significant amount of match funding, and European funding being of particular importance, so that is a risk for us, because if the match funding isn't released as we're anticipating, there will be a need to rescope the VVP project back. So there will be a need to bring that back into Cabinet if that happens. And, of course, it's a big project that we're looking to deliver in a wider context of reducing resources across the Council. So, in summary, it's still a significant regeneration programme for us. It does make a significant contribution to the regeneration and economic position of the borough, so it's still very much a good news story. There is a lot of detailed work still to work through, and we have some detailed studies ongoing, and the project may change as a result of that detailed information coming forward in due course. So if that does happen, I'll be bringing further reports back into Cabinet so those decisions can be made appropriately. So in terms of the recommendation, I'll just refer you to the recommendations. Ooh, dear me. Get there.
Can you ask us some comments on it?
Yeah, thank you. I'll get to the recommendation, Leader. Yeah.
Well, obviously this is a very important and very exciting project, one which we've been waiting for many, many years. I'm sure Lewis Jones will talk in a minute about the significance of the improvements in Pontypool, and I'm sure that people in Pontypool will be very excited. Can I say that from the Cwmbran point of view, we've been waiting for this opportunity for many, many years, and we'll be expecting the officers to do whatever they can, and they need to do it in the knowledge that they've got the full support of the Cabinet and the Council. And personally, I wish you good luck. But over to Lewis, I know he wants to make some comments about Pontypool.
Yeah, Christina is absolutely right when she says it's a huge project, you know, many different facets attached to it. But speaking as a resident of Pontypool and a councillor for Pontypool area, it's brilliant news for the town, because for many, many years we saw the derelict Clarence Hotel, which is absolutely blot on the Clarence. It's been probably completed now about 8 years and made a vast improvement, but in that time now we've seen other properties fall into dereliction, some of them council-owned properties, and this will give us the opportunity, hopefully, to bring those back into use, if not for commercial use, for domestic use. And as you mentioned in your report, the Upper Valley, or the old Pontypool and Abersyckan Co-op, as we knew it, you know, used to be one of the finest buildings in Pontypool, and you know, it's a shame to see it in its present state. We can bring that back into use for housing, would be brilliant, and see the St James's Church brought back into use. You know, absolutely top-class projects. It's a pity that we couldn't go ahead with the work to the Pontypool Road Station, because we badly need a decent transport hub for Pontypool and the north of Torfaen. But, you know, it was envisaged some time ago that the station could have been accessed from the bypass. So it's going to take quite a bit of money to do that, and it's not enough in this scheme to do it. So all we can hope is that the Welsh Government will work actively with us to bring about the scheme to bring Pontypool Road Station back into use as it should be, and a decent transport hub for the north of Torfaen. Thanks.
Members, Grenada, do you want to make a comment?
Just to add to what Lewis has said, and really thank you for the report, Christina, and thank you and your officers for working on this. It is long term. It's going to be a while before we see real benefit, but with 3,500 people on the waiting list, we can only hope that it will be, some of the properties will be domestic use, and they can be brought into habitable homes for people. But I certainly welcome it, because you can spend as much money as you like into Pontypool, but unless we deal with the dereliction that's also in Pontypool, then we will never achieve much. So thank you very much, and I hope and look forward to seeing most of these properties, if not all, done up to a high standard.
Good. Anybody? John?
Just to make the comment, to reiterate what you said, it is a very complex project, and there's a lot more work to do yet. There's a lot of I's to be dotted, a lot of T's to be crossed. But you're going to have some mechanism, I think, within this now over this period of years of updating us and keeping us in the loop as to what's happening, so that we will have, as elected members, will have some sort of an input into it.
Yeah, can I just answer that? That we will be looking and bringing a report to the Council on providing a mechanism where we can do exactly that. I know that Cwmbran members, both here and in the Community Council, are very enthusiastic about this, and we've got to get a proper mechanism, as you said, in order that members, the elected members, have got an input.
Yeah, just a quick question. I'm sure I've asked you this question before, but hear me, because if I have, I can't remember what the answer was. I wrote some figures down here. 674 and 373. Very, very precise numbers for jobs created and the amount of people held back in work. How on earth do you arrive at that figure, all those figures?
There is a detailed study that we've had to do to bring those figures forward. But if you don't mind, Chair, I'll bring Dave Evans down, because he's actually the officer that did the work.
He's done.
I can't give you the precise methodology, but as part of the application process, we actually commissioned an evaluation expert who used what the evaluation methods are by the Treasury, UK Treasury, to identify the jobs created outputs and the investment levered in outputs. So there are very specific methodologies that they use based on benchmarks elsewhere and based on particular calculations in terms of multipliers and so on. So I appreciate what you're saying. They're fantastically specific, but they are based on Treasury guidance in terms of how those figures are calculated.
And this would be the current Treasury, this Conservative. I wouldn't put a lot of store in those. I'd keep a weather eye on that.
Right. Any other members? If not, then all agree with the report. Thanks very much. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
We're moving on now then to item 9, which is the collaboration framework, and this is Mark Sherwood. I think this is the first time we've been up in the Cabinet. I'm sure you'll recall.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, this is indeed the first time I've been amongst such august company. This report really is to just to seek approval from Cabinet to put in place a framework so that we can help in a consistent approach in developing and monitoring of collaborative projects and services. And the reason that we are putting this forward is that we don't across the organisation have a consistent approach to make sure that when we're looking at the possible collaborations that we look at the other alternatives. Oops, sorry, battery just went, I think. What the actual costs are going to be for the organisation, how we understand the benefits either to us or to our service users and citizens, what exactly our governance and accountability arrangements are going to be, both operationally and politically, and what we would expect from the performance or the standards of service that we would require of the new organisation or the collaborative operations, and also where we might, at what stage we might need to have a discussion about whether we need to continue in that collaboration. So if performance is not doing as we expect, or if we're not reaching certain thresholds, do we need to have a discussion about whether we continue with those arrangements, whether we put in further investment, or whether we don't do anything and just monitor it. And we don't always revisit our large-scale collaborations to make sure, on a regular basis, to make sure they're compliant with our expectations and meeting their expected performance criteria. And lastly, one of the other reasons is the Wales Audit Office have done a study into collaboration, which included Torfaen. And while it was good to see that we enter into a lot of collaboration compared to our partners, they did have some issues about, well, those things which I've just highlighted, to be honest. And they are making a proposal to improve upon our systems in place. So this framework really is to the benefit of Torfaen, but also to address the issues raised by the Welsh Audit Office. I'm sure there's a quick way of doing this. The proposal itself has 4 stages, and it basically follows the basic thinking around any project planning, really. You've got the proposal stage, in which the initial idea is developed by the Chief Officer, and at that point, after having probably done some discussions with potential partners and indeed their cabinet member that's responsible for that portfolio, they would come to the leadership team in the first instance with a description of the project, the reasons for it, an outline of any other options which they've looked at that may not include collaboration, the likely costs and benefits, what the potential governance models are, and what our likely exit strategy criteria and principles for allocation of resources would be. So,
yeah, can I just say that this is a new system. This is the first time we've used it in the Cabinet or indeed in the Council, and it's one or two little difficulties, but I'm sure we can overcome them. Just talk amongst yourselves. Right.
That should be monitored corporately, or whether it's something that should be just monitored and developed by the service. And what we intend to do is put in place templates and guidance to help the services in making sure that they meet and develop all of those criteria so that in the future we don't come unstuck. The criteria for deciding whether it's a corporately monitored one are quite large, so there's a number of elements to that. And they are a statutory service, a complete service, more than 20 employees being involved. The cost to the organisation would be over £500,000 a year. And whether it is something that is required by legislation, I think, was the other criteria. So it's quite high. We're not expecting a large number of corporately monitored services and projects when it comes to collaboration. But if that is the case, then we will set in place a regular monitoring system that would be done in the corporate centre, so we can look through and review those. So once you've gone through the proposal stage, and it's agreed that it's something that we should look into more detail, then we go into detailed planning stages, and that is really just getting more detail, more definite costs, more definite benefits, better understanding of the governance arrangements, how we expect performance to go, all that sort of detailed planning that would be required. And then we'd come to the final decision. And the final decision would be made, is expected to be made either by the Cabinet or by Council, depending on the size of the collaboration. And at that point, we would enter into discussions over how we're going to monitor them. The final stage is the implementation and the monitoring, and that is setting in place a regular cycle of review of the performance, the compliance with any HR or legal or any other details that we've set in place, and then regular reporting so that we actually know that we're meeting our expectations or not. And that's essentially it, to be honest. To do that, we would set up a system on Funon so that we can monitor these things and people can put their documents on there so that they're available. And should you agree that we go through this process, there are a number of actions that we will need to do following your agreement. So first of all, we would need to report to Audit Committee because they're going to receive the Wales Audit Office report. We'd need to draw up some templates and some guidance, update Funon so that it can accept all the reports, do some work with officers, heads of service, chief officers, finance and legal so that we can develop the teams around this, monitor it, and finally set a start date so that everyone from that point would have to start using this the framework. And that's it, Sarah Leader.
Thanks for that, Mark. Very interesting and complex, I'm sure. Comments then? Yeah. Dave?
There's nothing I could add to the technical information that Mark has just provided. And can I say, Mark, if this is your first time before this August lot, as you refer to them, I don't think it showed. So you overcame all the interruptions and delivered what I consider to be a damn good idea. I think it is overdue to have this kind of framework in. Clearly, there is work to be done, but I think that the outcomes will benefit us going forward because the last thing we want to be doing is spending money by collaborating unnecessarily. If this framework allows us to be a little bit more selective and a bit more cautious in how we proceed, then I'm fully in support of it. I think the basic questions, and this is how it all boils down for me, the basic questions, there are two. What's the cost in terms of looking at the potential for collaboration. What's the cost and what's in it for us? I know that some people might have an idea that collaborating with other institutions and organisations, there's a lot of altruism in that. We're looking for the common good. But before we can get to that stage where altruism kicks in, we have to be looking after our own interests. So what's the cost? What's in it for us? Should be a part of this framework, and I'm sure it is. It's in there somewhere. The other thing that I'm minded to comment on is that in the next couple of years, and we are still unclear as to when it is, but we do know that it's going to happen, we're going to be amalgamated with other local authorities, so there's going to be that configuration. I, for one, and I'm sure that the Cabinet members around the table would share this view, that when we go into that grand collaboration, we want to be in a powerful position. We want to be in a driving seat. We don't want to be pulled along on the coattails of some other organisation. And I think this is setting something down now that will serve us well going forward into the future as well. So I commend it.
Right. Yeah, thanks for that, Dave. I want to bring the Chief Executive in.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to say that although the report says that I requested this framework to be drawn up, it actually came from scrutiny when Councillor Yole was in the chair before he was elevated to the august status of the Cabinet. That scrutiny was a really helpful session, and it made me think about the fact that we hadn't got a clear enough framework which set out the criteria for why we were collaborating. I think as an organisation we tend to be collaborators by nature. The culture of our organisation is that, and we always tend to think that collaborating is a good thing, and we need to be a little bit more thought perhaps and reflection on whether it is always a good thing, because with collaboration comes a lot of resource intensity in terms of setting up the arrangements and then monitoring them effectively. So I'd just like to thank the Scrutiny Committee for helping me to think through that and giving us the idea of bringing this report to Cabinet.
Good. John?
Yeah, can I say I'm very supportive of this particular report, but I have to say there is some confusion, I think, in local government today with the Welsh Government, because with the Williams report review on public services, we are being encouraged, well, maybe we didn't ought to be sort of collaborating, and yet the Welsh Government then is, on other aspects, are encouraging us to collaborate. We got ministers, the previous minister was collaboration. This minister we got now, a different minister, have said she's more interested, well, this person is more interested in directives rather than sort of collaboration. So I think that we all feel a little confused by it all. But I think the answer, for local government today, particularly in smaller authorities like us, is collaboration. And there's no doubt in my mind that it has certainly paid off for Torfaen in a lot of aspects.
Thanks for that. Anthony?
Thanks, Leader. Just to really expand on the points that have been made before, obviously this is a live issue with Williams, and we can't deny the impact that has on this, but just to welcome the approach, really. There are a number of tensions, as have been sort of talked about within sort of collaborations, and I think we've been right in this authority to lead on many and to take a sort of an expansive view of these things, not trying to keep things close to us, but to look how they can best be delivered, even if that involves letting go in some places. But those tensions do exist, between the wish to innovate and the wish to not expose to risk, sort of a risk averseness that's essential in many of the services we deliver. The tension between the wish for accountability and democracy and democratic accountability, to merge those two words, and the wish for efficiencies and scales. And I think that's something that we need to resolve with the Welsh Government, really, because sometimes we can be pulled in both directions. For example, on the innovation risk aversion scale, from different parts of the Welsh Government, perhaps. Having said that, there are a number of savings and improvements that I think have been made. I think we're going to talk about one, maybe in item 13 under the telephone contracts, the kind of opportunities to save money and therefore safeguard vital services that collaboration can bring. I think Councillor Yole's point about monitoring performance is a very important one. We I think we're right not to try and grab hold of things and keep hold of them for our own sort of institutional interests, but we've got to maintain a mechanism to call into question performance and to sort of have that sort of accountability of is a collaboration delivering for us, or more importantly for the people we represent. Last point I want to make really is the necessity of collaboration as an alternative to what's been done in some authorities over in England about privatising services. I think I'm in a fairly safe majority in this council to say that we're against the whole-scale privatisation of services that some councils have used as an alternative, because I think that's not in the best long-term interests of either the services that are delivered or the staff that work in those services, and that's something I think we'd hopefully continue to oppose. And to look at collaborations as a way of presenting a viable alternative to that sort of cut-and-run mentality in some Conservative-led authorities.
Well done, Anton. Thanks so much. Anybody else want to make a comment? If not, all agree with the report, Joe. Thanks so much. Thank you, Mark. Lewis is leaving. Now then, we're on to the item 10, which is the Torvine Leisure Trust guarantee, and this is David Lilly.
Another small glitch. Shout. This report is outlining a consideration of a request from the Torvine Leisure Trust for the council to support as a guarantor some capital developments.
Still on the other list.
Yeah, it won't go up there. It won't go up. To support some capital works at Cumran Stadium, which would be income generating and provide a facility to protect the leisure services provided by the TLT going forward. Cabinet approved the transfer of the Leisure Trust to the Leisure Services to the Leisure Trust in July of last year. One of the criteria of that transfer was that it would allow the Leisure Trust to invest in the capital infrastructures of the stadium and Pontypool Leisure Centre, and it would also allow it to attract external funding to support the leisure services. The principal advantage of going to the TLT was that the trust would be more tax efficient than the authority, in that it wouldn't have to pay full national domestic rates. And the council took the decision to allow that saving to be used by both the trust and the authority to address prevalent condition surveys within the buildings and look towards income generation facilities. This report looks at the income generation activities to develop the trust going forward into its medium term. Since its inception, the trust has been looking at activities which it could undertake to develop additional income streams, and it's employed an external consultant to undertake those reviews. Those external consultants have come up with a business plan to undertake a number of activities at Cumran Stadium. The Leisure Trust has been in discussions with the commercial banking sector to fund these developments, but unfortunately, because the Leisure Trust is such a new organisation, it hasn't got a credit rating, so it can get loans, but they are at extremely high rates of interest. So the trust has approached us to see if we would act as a guarantee on the loans to allow it to get more favourable rates, in much the same way as we guarantee their pension admission agreement. I've been supplied with the business plan that the external consultants have developed, and the business plan as it looks very positive with regards to income generation. We have also had meetings with the Leisure Trust officers ourselves, because we also provide the financial support to the Leisure Trust with commercial banks. One of the commercial banks has indicated that they would like to see a due diligence review undertaken of the proposals before going forward. So that should provide further guarantees and certainty over the figures going forward. The works that are being considered are around about 2.2 million, inclusive of VAT, with that being made up of a loan agreement and some lease agreements to fund some equipment within the premises. The loan agreement would be undertaken over a 15-year period, with the leases then being undertaken over the life of the assets, the equipment. In broad terms, it's going to be about 5 years for those equipment. With regards to risks to the council, the principal risk is that the trust defaults on its repayments to the banks and the lease companies. Given that the loans and the capital works are going to be undertaken primarily through the NNDR savings, there is a small amount that's going to have to be funded by additional income, about 15% of the works. That the risk is minimal, and with the review being undertaken by a further independent organisation, I believe that those risks are minimised. That really just summarises where we are with the report and the proposals that's coming forward from the Leisure Trust.
Right, thank you for that, Dave. We had a PDF earlier on in the week, and we had a report from the director, Sally, and it's very encouraging to see how excited she was and how positive she was. And I think it confirmed the fact that we were right to put leisure into a trust. There are many local authorities in Wales now, because of the financial situation, that are talking about selling them off and doing all sorts of things. I was pleased to listen to Sally. And that's been achieved by our officers working closely with the new Leisure Trust. So I think we all can feel excited about it and pleased about where we are. And so I want to thank you and your team and thank the Leisure Trust for coming together, working closely and finding what must be a solution. This will be the first sort of money of this type that have been spent in Cwmbran for many, many years. And who would have thought that? But it's good news. Anthony?
Thank you, Leader. Just want to similarly welcome the report, really, and say that it does show that the benefits of the decision that were made to put the leisure facilities out to trust. That wasn't an easy decision. It wasn't one that was motivated by institutional self-interest, but by the wish to sort of present a viable future for leisure services. And again, I think it's a good alternative to sort of a privatisation type model that we wouldn't want to follow, and I don't think would be in the best interest of the services. I think I was down there last Tuesday with the BBC, who presented their breakfast programme from there, Radio Wales, and they were very impressed by the enthusiasm of Sally and the workers, and by I've been very impressed as well by the energy of the members of the trust to take things forward, to innovate, to try and get more customers through the doors, which is essential to their plans. The figures we've seen are very good. They've been independently audited and looked at, which is very encouraging, and I think can lead us to believe, as Dave said, that the risk is minimal. And I think this is really the relationship that we should have with the Leisure Trust going forward, to let them get on with the good job that they're doing, but to be a supportive influence on them. I think it's been described to me before as a parent sort of helping out by being a guarantor on their kid's first car loan. I think that's a good sort of way of taking it forward, to not try and interfere with them, but to try and help them flourish in their early years.
If not, all agree with the report, please show. Thanks very much. Thanks, Dave. Very good. Now then, on to item 11, which is the disposal of the former County Hall site, and this is Victor Mavundula. Again, first appearance in front of the camera. I wish you well, Victor.
Thank you.
just for the benefit of those people who's watching, that's not in the chamber, this is a new system that we've had installed, and this is the first day that we've tried it. And as you can see, we've got a problem or two. I have been known to do that in the past.
Who's responsible for this system? Richard, isn't it? Perhaps we ought to have Richard singing a couple of songs.
Excuse me, are we ready yet? Yeah, Victor, you've got a paper there. Shall we leave the IT system for the moment, and you can go on and talk us through it with the paper.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, members.
Yeah, carry on.
The report is about the former County Hall site. I think that the last time we came to Cabinet was to request a budget allocation for the demolition of the buildings. I'm sure you're all aware that that's been completed. More significantly, it was completed on budget. The final figures are being totted up, but we expect there to be an underspend, even if it's a modest one. And credit for that really goes to our colleagues in Monmouthshire who project managed the demolition contract. So we're now looking at what happens next with the site. We have been collaborating with the police regarding disposal of the site together with the police HQ, but I think the police are reconsidering their options at the moment. But we now have a cleared site, and the proposal is for us to go ahead with the disposal of our own site. And since Monmouthshire kindly managed the demolition contract, the proposal is that Tovine manage the disposal of the site. That will involve mainly officers from asset management and legal services. So, in summary, really, the recommendations of the report are, first, to note that demolition is complete and within budget. Secondly, to ask that Tovine declares its half share of the freehold interest surplus to requirements, and that the disposal of the site can be undertaken and managed by Tovine's legal and asset management services.
Right, thank you for that. Someone asked me the other day, when do we think they'll be building on the old County Hall site? Anybody got any idea of the timeline? You know, you're going to market it, obviously, and then you've got to get contractors and so on.
Yeah, it's difficult to put a time scale to it because there's so many variations. But based on recent experience, it just tended to be from the time that we have started marketing to the time that a developer is on site, it's sort of 18 to 24 months. So it is a while off yet before a spade goes in the ground, so to speak.
So that's about 2.5 years then?
I would say that about 2 years.
Yeah. All right, thanks for that.
Yeah.
David, do you want to ask a question? Anybody else want? Right, Anthony?
Very quickly to welcome the report from Victor. I know it's his first report to Cabinet, but he's worked on many reports in the past, and his diligent work is very much welcomed. To welcome the news of completion within budget. It's much better than the alternative of completion not within budget. And just a word of caution to sort of my ever-present reminder to members that when the site is sold, the money isn't a windfall to the council as such. Half the money will go to us and half to Monmouth, of course, but our part of the money is already allocated towards the 21st Century Schools budget. So we just have to keep that in mind.
Did you make that point? Anybody else? If not, then all agree. Thanks very much. Now then, I see, Victor, that you've got another item, item 12, which is the disposal of Two Locks Nursery site, Cwmbran. Over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, Two Locks Nursery is one of the school establishments that are due to close as part of the 21st Century Schools program. The closing date is the 1st of September this year. The site is about half an acre. There is a little bit of land just outside the site which we're looking to combine with the county hall, with the Tullochs Nursery campus itself to make a slightly larger site. Given the size of the site and the need for affordable housing, the proposal is that this site is put forward for disposal to an RSL so that there is 100% affordable housing on the site. The selection process for the RSL is something that would have to be finalized by officers, and we're proposing that that be delegated for final approval to the executive member for housing, planning and public protection, together with the executive member for resources. And the reason why this is coming to Cabinet at this point is really so that we can start the preparations in advance of the 1st of September, so that when the nursery closes, we don't have too long a period when it is vacant and we are incurring costs of managing the vacant site. So in terms of recommendations, I think those are on paragraph 12. It's firstly to declare the Tullochs Nursery site and the land to the west of it surplus to council requirements, for Cabinet to grant approval for the site to be disposed of to an RSL, on the understanding that the receipt is likely to be less than market value. And then for the arrangements for the selection of the RSL to be approved by the executive member for housing, public protection and planning, and then for any arrangements regarding the actual purchase price to be approved under delegated authority by the executive member for resources.
Thanks for that. Anybody? Yeah, Connor.
Say thank you again, Victor, for the report. I welcome this, and again, we talked earlier about problems with empty properties, and the fear here is if the property is left empty too long, we'll have vandalism and create huge problems for the residents that live around there. But more importantly, we need this site for housing, so I'm very pleased to see the report and hope that Cabinet approves it.
Thanks for that. Anybody else? I want to ask one small question, because I was asked by the member for that area about 3 days ago. There's a car park opposite the school. Is that going to be marketed the same, or doesn't fall into this?
The car park opposite the school is not affected by.
All right. Thanks for that, Brian. Anybody else? If not, all agreed. Thanks so much. Thank you, Victor. Okay. We're on to item 14, the development of, contract provision to upgrade the telephone system, item 13. This is Matt Lewis.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Leader. Just to present the paper on the telephony contract, which Councillor Hand alluded to earlier in the discussion. You know, it's a fantastic project that highlights one of the positive collaboration outcomes, really, of the SRS. So the purpose of the report is to go through the telephony contract that we've awarded and discuss and present to you what the benefits of that contract are. So it's called a Lot D to Contractor A, obviously because we can't put the full details in there of each of the organisations that provided tender documentation. So the recommendations that we're looking for approval for are on that first page of the document as well. So it's around the approval of a 5-year contract to a specific contractor, to agree the implementation for an urgent decision, and to approve the funding from reserve IT funding. So the funding's there to go with this as well. So the background to the project is, briefly, that both Torvine and Monmouthshire need to upgrade their telephone systems. So this covers things like voicemail, the contact centre, the switchboard, right across the board for both organisations. And the kind of essence of this is, if Torvine were to do this project on their own, it would cost over 5 years £37,000 more to do this rather than to do it with Monmouthshire. And the reason for that is because we both use exactly the same systems, we're using exactly the same hardware, so to buy one system together between the organisations is much cheaper than to buy 2 separate implementations of the same thing. So that's where the savings come from. It's slightly smaller numbers on the Monmouthshire side, but again, there is a saving there. So this equivalent proposal has gone through Monmouthshire as well, so there's approval that side for this. So the paper discusses the expected outcomes, what we're looking to do, how the tender process was managed. Martin Campbell ran it for us on the Torfaen side, so it's gone through all the proper processes. There were a number of bidders that submitted, and then to go back and prove further value for money, we've also offered it to a separate tender framework, if you like, just to prove that what we're actually doing is value for money. So we've proved it in a number of different ways, just to make sure that we're actually spending what we need to be spending. So it discusses the shortlisted lots. So we went out for a solution just for Torfaen, a solution just for Monmouthshire, and a combined solution to, again, prove that by doing it together, it was value for money. If it was cheaper to do it separately, then it would be a very difficult discussion. So like I said, the recommendations at the end are all around, approving a 5-year award for the contract. So we've been through the process. So the 5-year contract is a support contract after we've purchased the equipment. So there's a purchase cost of £101,596 on the Torfaen side. And there's a 5-year contract that runs with that at £21,000 a year, so £110,000 on top of that as well over the 5 years. And again, that's covered from existing revenue budget, so we're not asking for new money here at all. Second recommendation is the one around agreeing the decision urgently. The reason for that is because the quotes that we've been given as part of the tender are so attractive that they can't hold it past the end of March, which is why we need to get this approval today and get the orders placed. The discount that's been applied to this contract, because it also kind of matches in with Cisco's year end and that kind of thing, the discounts that were being offered to purchase before end of March are they're fantastic deals, really. And then approve the funding from the IT reserve budget. There's in excess of this amount of funding that's currently sat within the reserve budget within Torfaen, so it's well covered within that. So it's asking for approval from that reserve funding as well. Any questions?
Thanks for that, Matt. No, any questions? If not, all agree the report. Please show. Thanks very much. Thanks for that, Matt.
Thanks very much.
This is the last item on the agenda, and it's item 14, which is the development of a regional proposal, Intermediate Care Fund. This is Sue Evans.
Thank you, Leader. I think the technology is with us, so we have the report. Okay, thank you. What I'm looking for here is for members to note the proposal that was submitted to Welsh Government in response to a call for regional intermediate care bids, a letter we received from Welsh Government on the 17th of January. And obviously I'm bringing this retrospectively because we've already submitted the proposal. And it reflects the earlier conversation we had about the collaboration framework. I think the collaboration framework is an excellent idea and great in principle. The difficulty we're going to have is when, and this does happen, fairly regularly, we have announcements about grants that require us to respond in quite a time-limited fashion and to generate a lot of interest from a wide range of partners wouldn't allow us to go through that framework in many cases. But as you'll remember, a few years ago I did bring a paper about the principles we already use within the service area for social care and housing for collaboration, and we use that phrase, collaboration to add value. So all of the collaborations we enter into, we follow those principles to make sure that is there a benefit to the people of Torfaen, so just to reassure you on that. The other thing to highlight here is that we had a regional notional allocation, and that's set out there in 3.2. And although we've developed some local proposals, and I'll go through some of those in a second, the majority of them have a Gwent delivery mechanism, and I'll highlight those in the attachment for you now. And that notional value is set out there at 3.1, so 5.3 million for revenue and 2.6 for capital, and it's that personal social services adults formula that is used to determine that notional figure. And this is a way that the Welsh Government is now starting to act across health and social care. A lot of the expectations are that we will develop things on a regional basis using that health board footprint. And we're seeing more and more of their expectations and grant conditions, expecting us to respond in that manner. So there's a bit of a potential conflict with our, the earlier paper that we're trying to adhere to a collaboration framework on a Torfaen-specific basis, but the principles should be the same, so we should be able to manage them. I've set out there the background of the principles of what that intermediate care fund is for, and I've also picked out there some relevant issues. What we did, because of the short timescales, we held a number of local workshops in Torfaen with the relevant RSLs, health and care providers, and other boroughs did the same. And then we held 2 specific Gwent-wide workshops to try and pull all those elements together. And as a result of those activities, we received more than 70 different ideas and bids from a whole range of agencies. And I've set out there under those bullet points of the types of the key elements, if you like, of those proposals. And obviously they were compared against the criteria that Welsh Government submitted to us to come up with our proposal. And as I've set out there at 4.4, although we've developed them in a Gwent-wide regional framework, they will be delivered by a whole range of different organisations. So it won't be just the statutory sector delivering them. We're trying to encourage third sector participation to make sure that everyone gets a bite of the cherry. And Caerphilly Borough, they're acting as the banker for the fund, and as you know, they're already the banker for the frailty pooled fund, so it's using the same team, if you like, to manage this fund because it is related to support and care for older people, so it makes sense, and it means we don't have to set up a separate team to manage this. Once the bids have been approved, each local authority and health board will share the work to implement different parts of it, because obviously it would be a massive endeavour to try and manage all of these different new service developments in one way. And when we developed the proposals, we all took a share in developing our own local ones, but also Gwent-wide ones. So some of them, they may be described, for example, as Torfaen or Blaen y Gwent, but some of them are actually Gwent-wide. They're just hosted and developed by that particular local authority. Some of the issues, I think, just to point out there is, at the moment, this is 1 year funding, and it's a significant amount of money to try and spend in 1 year, and to try and demonstrate that there is a benefit. And if there is a benefit, to try and make sure we've got sustainability going forward. I guess the good thing about the fund is Welsh Government have said that they are looking for us to test new things, and even if we test something and it doesn't work, failure will be seen as a good way of testing something that previously we wouldn't have tested because we didn't have the money. So it is going to be treated almost as a experimental fund for some aspects. So where the evidence isn't strong, we'll still be able to test, will it work in this region or this locality, and we won't be penalised if it doesn't deliver the goods. And if you think about it, I mentioned it earlier, the £50 grant for the top-up of DFG for a loan product, that's never been tried before, and that's one of the things we've submitted as an innovative way of using this intermediate care fund. And if Welsh Government approve it, we'll test whether people use it, how well it enhances the DFG pot, and we'll all learn from that. So it's good in that way that it will enable us to try something different. We'll manage it through the same joint committee, the Frailty Joint Committee, so we'll give regular reports through that Gwent committee to make sure that there's a Gwent-wide overview with elected members taking part in that work, so that some of the lessons that we learn from these different ways of working or these new collaborative arrangements can be tested out. Wide consultation within the timescales that we had available as best as we could. And again, I've mentioned the risks there about challenging to manage the expectations within a limited 1 year, with quite a significant amount of money to try and spend in 1 year and demonstrate the benefits. It's quite a challenge. So it will be complex to implement because it's a regional proposal but with a number of local elements. But by using the Integrated Services Coordinating Group, we'll hope to manage and mitigate against those risks. We're expecting Welsh Government to respond before the end of this week, the end of March. And in the meantime, we're developing the operational policies, the relevant job descriptions, are being developed behind the scenes in anticipation of an April start date, or as soon as we can after that, with recruitment, if the proposal is successful. Measures of success, obviously this is all part of our intermediate care strategy, so building on the frailty, keeping people out of hospital, or if they do need to go into hospital, making sure their stay in hospital is as short as possible. In conclusion then, we've submitted a regional bid, and what I'm looking for members to note the proposal that we've submitted to Welsh Government, and for members to endorse the proposal and to confirm participation in delivery of both the local and the regional elements, subject to Welsh Government approval, which we are expecting by the end of this week.
Right, thanks for that,
Happy to take
Sue.
any questions?
Yeah, Richard?
Lost now, the microphone won't work. Should I shout? Is that right? A shy retiring person. If I raise my voice as well, the microphone can pick it up. Comprehensive report by Sue as ever, and I really can't add anything to that, though a little bit of modesty on her part. The Welsh Assembly Government did set very tight deadlines for this, and for Sue to lead this for the whole of Gwent in collaboration with her equivalents elsewhere, but her the driving force. She deserves all credit for that, and I commend you for that. So obviously you wouldn't say that in your report, but I'll say it on your behalf. It is a Gwent-wide move forward. We had a frailty committee on Friday, and my equivalents at that frailty board meeting quite openly welcomed this, and they're taking them through their own individual process. As with Sue's officers, it is true collaboration, going aside from the report earlier, but in social care in particular, we're collaborating on the Gwent-wide footprint. It is very exciting time to be in the portfolio I've got for that very reason, and Frailty Joint Committee is dipping its toe into this wider governance role, and I'm looking forward to this new role. Sue and her officers in this authority and others are to be commended, and I hope members will support it. It's not going to be 100% rosy and easy. It's new defined territory, and Sue's already set out that the Welsh Government will accept, I don't want to say failure, but teething troubles. Should we say teething troubles? And we'll learn from those mistakes. Frailty itself is 5 different models within Gwent, and from that, hopefully, we will get the best franchise that can be exported to the rest of Wales. Hopefully, a similar thing can go forward on this proposal.
Well done, Rich, and glad to see him speaking highly of Sue. Who's next?
Yep.
David? Yeah.
In fact, that's very apposite because it's collaboration that I wanted to return to. I commend the report, and clearly off the back of what Richard said, then you shouldn't be too modest in taking the accolades that come your way. But at the start of your presentation, you did raise an issue with collaboration, and questioned whether or not it was going to be flexible enough to accommodate sometimes having to move quite quickly. I hope it'll go some way to alleviating some of these problems or some of these misgivings, because if you look at paragraph 5.2, bullet point 3 on the collaboration report, it does state fairly clearly there the framework should be flexible enough to reflect the potentially large variation in types of services and projects that could be entered into collaboratively. So I don't think you have too much to worry about there, because this particular project will hopefully contain within it the degree of flexibility that will accommodate your concerns.
Right, anyone else? Any comments of anybody? If not, all agree with the report, please show. Thanks so much, Sue. Well done, Sue. I know you put a lot of personal effort into it.
Thank you.
Right then, that's the last item on the agenda, so I'll close the meeting. Can I just say to the public and others that this is a brand new system, first time we've used it, and hopefully we will have mastered it by the next time we use it. I'll close the meeting.